talking shortcuts, productivity coaching, and video production with Brittany Smith. This is Mac Voices. This edition of Mac Voices is supported by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter to keep you up on all the latest from Mac Voices. Watch or listen to Mac Voices straight from your email client. Sign up at macvoices.com/newsletter and stay up to date. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this time around, we have something that I should have done a long time ago, and I just haven't gotten to it, and so we finally made the schedules work. And so you know her, you love her. Brittany Smith is here, one of our favorite panelists on Mac Voices Live. Brittany, great to have you. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chuck.
So everybody knows you from Mac Voices Live and your commentary there on whatever the topic du jour or topics du jour are. And you mention it whenever we say, hey, Britt, where can folks find you? What else are you doing? You always mention your YouTube channel, youtube.com/ADD Liberator. And I've looked a couple times, but I recently dug in a little bit, and it's like, holy cow. Number one, there's a lot of content here. Number two, Brittany's producing a lot herself, and it's great content, both from a production standpoint, but more importantly, from a content standpoint. So you're an ADD coach by trade. What are you doing with video, becoming a video producer? How'd this happen?
Okay. If we want to get back in my life story, and I don't really think that's what we want to do, but before I went through cognitive neuroscience, before I had a child development degree, I had a film degree.
I didn't know
was
that.
My very first. Yeah, I have 4 degrees because I'm a crazy person. And the first one, so I've always loved making videos since I was 12. These are less story oriented than the ones I used to make when I was 12. But, it's a medium I really love.
So you just do this just because you love it, and you obviously are good at it and have content that you want to share.
And it's funny because in the tech world, like when I talk to you, when I talk to other folks, occasionally I'm the ADHD person, but often I'm the brain person, and that's great. When I'm in the ADHD world, I'm the tech person. So technology coaching with the understanding of like a productivity mindset and, when appropriate, an ADHD mindset, that is a lot of my jam. The things that I get really excited about are the intersections of our brains and technology, whatever your brain may look like. And so helping people with those workflows, I've definitely had technology coaching clients that didn't have ADHD. We were just working on improving their workflows.
That was going to be the next thing I wanted to ask is, how do you define a technology coach? But I think you maybe just did.
Well, you can't say consultant because that's the person who fixes your computer. But I'm the person that, how do you want to be using this? Let's make sure you do it. And depending on the person, because I don't want to overwhelm anybody, I may say, hey, I've noticed you've done this thing several times. Did you know there's a shortcut key for it? Or, hey, did you know that these two programs can talk really well together? I have a client who had all this information he had to pass between teams, and then he wanted to set reminders about it. He wanted to add it to his notes. And I was like, you know what? Shortcuts. And we started him off making some shortcuts together, and he is in love now. It has made all the difference in his workflow. And did he start off coming for ADHD coaching? Yeah, but in the end, that's been one of the most valuable things he's gotten out of it was, this is how my brain works. And this is a way that I can use a tool to make up for where my brain isn't that great so that I can focus on my strengths.
So I'll ask this now so I don't forget later, because we have a bunch of stuff we want to talk about. But if one wanted to retain your services, is this something that they have to be physically close to you, or do you do it virtually?
No, technology coaching works great over Zoom because you can do a screen share. You can even plug in your phone to do a screen share over Zoom with your phone, sharing your phone screen too. We could do the newer ways if we need to with, FaceTime sharing and stuff, but, Zoom does it. So yeah, no physical proximity needed.
So like if I retained you, you could sit here and watch my workflow for how I produce MacVoices and make suggestions on how I might streamline it.
Yeah, and maybe I don't have something, but often somebody comes with like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Let's figure it out. And sometimes it turns out that the program they're using actually doesn't work that intuitively. They just feel like they should be using it. And so we may find something that works a little bit, that feels more natural to them, right? If you were struggling with Final Cut and, oh, I hate it and I wish it were in the cloud. I know you don't, you like Final Cut. But I'd be like, well, Adobe works in the cloud. You know that, but that's an example.
Well, it's a good example because, you're right. We all get stuck in our own ruts. And if they work for us, great. But if there are those things that you say, gee, I wish it would, or I wish it could, that's maybe where you can help them, look outside their own little box and find some of those things.
And I don't always have a solution, but we can always look into it together. Like having another person to externalize stuff to can be really valuable.
Interesting. Okay.
But I know that's not why you brought me on. So
no, but I mean, we're going to have more conversations, Britt. So let's talk about the YouTube channel. I think it's interesting that you have selected a YouTube channel. There's a lot of stuff here of all kinds. And so guide me through a little bit, because there's some ADHD stuff. There's some shortcut stuff. Is that just, sort of the nature of everything that you do, that they're all jumbled up and mixed together?
I don't want to manage 2 channels, Chuck.
Fair enough. Makes
if I were running YouTube, you'd only turn on notifications for a particular playlist, right? You'd be like, oh yeah, tech tips, I want that one. Or ADHD Guild, I want that one. I don't run YouTube though, so I can't choose how those notifications work. But so we put out some Guild content about once a month. And that's just, it's literally to help promote our ADHD Guild group that we have and get the word out, but also like make sure there's content on the website because every video can become a blog post. So we have some of that. We do our weekly review, and you don't have to have ADHD, but we sort of keep neurodiversity in mind for it. So every week we do a live stream. Of course, I'll be gone next week because I'll be out of town, but we do a live stream where we're just doing our own work. And when I was getting started with getting things done, I was like, I want to do this at the same time as somebody else, because coming up with like a time to sit and do the weekly review was really hard. And I actually looked for something like that and I never found it. And at a certain point I realized, wait, I could do it. So my colleague and I, we sit down and we do our weekly review on a live stream. And sometimes we talk out our problems. We invite people to share what they're working on if they're comfortable in the chat. Sometimes we have a bunch of people, sometimes we don't. It's hit or miss. But that's not the content I spent the most time on. It's just other stuff that appears on the channel, because managing multiple channels is not a thing I want to do.
Okay. And it exposes folks to everything you're doing, so that if they're interested in one, they might be interested in some of the others. And if not, then they just don't watch that particular episode.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Everyone should pick the content they want consciously and mindfully. The thing that I've really been putting a lot of work into are the tech tips videos. Getting started with iOS 16, so I downloaded it, the week that it was available, and I started playing with it, and then I started planning out some videos I'd already wanted to do. So a lot were coming out in the summer, and they're on iOS 16 because I didn't want them to feel dated really soon there's not a ton of visual changes, but there are some. And so I started recording on it, but I just didn't talk about the iOS 16 features. And then I planned out the videos that were specifically about iOS 16 for when that would actually come out.
So, I mean, that feels very forward thinking. That feels very intentional, which is probably what I would expect from an ADHD coach. But just the idea that, they're not necessarily geared to ADHD, but I'm sure that you can share them to your clients and in that world.
Yeah, they come from sort of my brain perspective. I look at technology with our brains and our biology, thinking about that first. And so, the things I'm talking about are the things that I think would help people live happier, more productive lives with their technology. We're talking about focus modes and some coming up. We talk about the changes to Notification Center in one of the upcoming videos. And we talk about, I have one in the past, but Notification Center also, but that one's less positive. And so it's these things that are really about how we interact all the time, like making sure you feel like your apps are organized the way that makes sense for you, not seeing a page of apps when it's not appropriate to, like when it might be distracting as opposed to helpful. Or, hey, it's evening, I don't want to see my work stuff. Instead, I would like to see my for fun stuff. And just sort of being mindful and intentional about what's this world we want to interact with on our phones so we can feel better about it.
As I'm listening to you talk, it strikes me that this is something that so many of us need more and more of because the worlds are blending together. I mean, the pandemic sent a lot of us home to work, and so and that apparently was an issue for a lot of people, that they couldn't pick it up in the morning, or they couldn't put it down at night, or they couldn't get started or couldn't stop. And that led to a lot of different issues. And so much of what you're talking about here sounds like it crosses over into the mindfulness thing. It's not just tech, but it's tech with mindfulness in mind. Sorry.
I mean, it doesn't have to be like mindfulness, mindfulness training, but just like not letting our devices decide for us. If all of the companies that we have apps from had their way, they would have all of your attention all of the time. And that's probably not what you would choose. But you're the one who paid for your device, Chuck. You should get to choose how you use it. And if we don't stop and think about it, we aren't the ones in charge.
Are you implying that the device is in charge?
I'm implying that if we don't choose to not have things interrupt us, things will interrupt us because it is in the best interest of the people making the apps.
Okay.
And sometimes those people are Apple.
Good. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
Putting news widgets on whether I want it or not.
Well, and sometimes there are other entities out there that get even more intrusive and demanding. So, yeah. So I've watched a few of these, but I didn't try to pretend to watch all of them. What is your target length for these? Is it just as long as it needs to be, or do you kind of try to limit it?
Yeah, I was going for smaller ones, although the one that comes out the same week that this probably will come out is much longer. And I just didn't think it was interesting enough to justify being multiple videos. So that one's like 10 minutes long. But a lot of them are 2 to 3 minutes long. So they're sort of these little bite-sized chunks, but I actually had an even bigger plan than that. So what I did was I thought, I actually have all of these things I want to share, and they're all on this one topic. So the one that I did first was organizing your apps. And I made them like a mini series course. So I have actually, coming available next week, a little mini series course. So if somebody wants all of it together with some extra stuff where I do intros and things like that in, a nice, pretty horizontal mode, or just they want to support the work I'm doing, it'll be cheap. I say straight on there, a bunch of these videos are on YouTube. You don't have to pay for this to get the content. It's just available if somebody wants it. And I thought, okay, and that's how I got my head around it. Like, I have lots of things to say on this one topic. So I can release videos on that one topic and have them also add up to a bigger whole. The next mini series is hiding distracting apps. So I have a whole bunch of things. That's where I do my deep dive on focus modes, because you can hide whole screens of apps and things like that. So they're along these little mini topics.
Okay. I feel like we're bouncing around, but I definitely want to make sure I get. No. There's so many things here to talk about. So how are you? Where do you go to get those as they become available?
I have a Teachable link.
Okay. The service Teachable. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's through the Teachable platform.
Okay. Then I will definitely you'll send me that link. I'll make sure, folks, that I have it in the show notes so you can find it pretty easily. Okay. So let's go video geek just a little bit and talk about the production of how you do these. Are these strictly, well, I know they're not all just strictly screen captures, because there's some that it appears there's a bit more production work being done. Who's doing it? Are you doing it all solo, or do you have partners or vendors? How is it working out?
So I record 4 sources. I have a screen recording, I have 2 cameras, and I have a microphone source. And I'm actually really proud of this. Can I go real geeky?
Go. Yes.
Okay. So they all save, each device saves to its own folder in iCloud Drive. So I had to get the footage or this audio and I save it to the folder. And I have a Hazel rule for my iCloud folders that will rename them based on the folder that they're in. And then I put them in another set of folders so that they're all named the same. So I can easily find, because I'll do a whole set of recordings in a single day. And so they're all set up so that I can easily sync them up in Final Cut, or rather, my editor can. So I have an editor who does a first pass, and then I get it back and do the formatting for it and into the different formats that I want it to be. And then I have somebody help me with the posting in different locations.
Okay, posting in different locations. I know about YouTube. Where else do they get posted?
Teachable, and some of them become blog posts if I think they're big enough to go on my blog for my website. On the roadmap is turning some of the smaller ones into TikToks, as much as I've had resistance to doing that in the past, and but it is on the roadmap.
I'll be anxious to hear how that goes, because that's something that I keep saying I really need to do that, and I'll get around to it one of these days, and I never quite get there because it's not comfortable, you know.
And if it's not a place that you spend a lot of time, it's not comfortable.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by using the Hazel rules to rename things in iCloud. That's intriguing.
Otherwise, I'd lose track of what belonged with what footage. So yeah, they get names like side cam, front cam, lav mic, screen. So they get those names, and then they get names for like the specific video that it's for.
So, I mean, yes, I guess I'm asking you to get into the nuts and bolts.
Okay.
So let's say this video, the camera 1 and camera 2 go to 2 different folders, and then mic 1 goes to a separate folder. And because they land in those folders, they get automatically named mic 1, mic 2, or excuse me, camera 1, camera 2, and mic.
And then they get moved into another folder. Yeah.
That is done, and you do that part of it manually?
Nope, that's Hazel. It goes into another folder called Ready. It doesn't matter, but it's one that's not included in the Hazel rules. And then I go, oh, well, these ones were all, because when they all get in there, at the end of the day, I could say, well, the first ones all belong together. The second ones all belong together. I may do a timestamp check just to double check, but, and then I drag all of those into another folder that's set to rename that may be, Organize Apps 1 or something like that. And so then they're all of the ones that belong together. That way my editor sees them and he goes, oh, these all go together.
Got it.
Because they're all the same name.
Okay. Yeah.
And we share those over iCloud Drive too.
Right. Well, I was
just already there.
I was missing the one piece that you have the separate Hazel rule to move them from their separate folders into a main folder. And then there is a manual part of the process. I mean,
the second drop in where I put it into the correct. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
This belongs with this video.
Because if you had figured out a way for it to know what you were recording, I wanted to know about it. So,
oh yeah, that would be amazing, but that sounds awful to make and not reliable.
Well, and so you just, you set it because that's one of the big challenges, I think, whenever you're setting up these workflows, is you need them to be reliable, and you don't need to be rebuilding them every 10 minutes.
No. Because
a new system update came out. So I think that's one reason that people shy away from using shortcuts or using automations, is they come to depend on them, and then if they break, it almost feels like, gee, I'm just going to do it manually because I know that won't break.
It does suck when they break, but there are some ways you can make it a little bit more robust. Like, okay, this one's going to last, sort of thinking ahead. All of my shortcuts, it's a tangent, but like all of my shortcuts for client meetings, it's going to grab the client's name from somewhere else. Right? Like I don't have anything that's dependent on seeing my full list of clients, because that's constantly fluctuating. It's going to grab it from, a group of potential ones, and maybe I have to choose. And so that part's a little bit manual, but it's also going to be more robust as my client list ever changes.
Got it. Got it. Well, I did want to go back for just a second and spin the whole way back to the ADHD Guild, because we sort of
Mhm.
passed over that. And for folks that maybe aren't familiar with you, I want to make sure you explain what that is, because that may also be of interest to them as well.
Yeah, it's a community for nerdy folks with ADHD. Any kind of nerdy is fine. Other forms of neurodiversity, including autism spectrum, are also welcome, but a lot of our educational content is going to be specifically around ADHD. Um, and people will share things like their daily tasks and have accountability. We have tiers that have co-working, so you can get on and work with other people inside of our Discord server. It's very Discord based, and we have multiple levels of support, and just having a little community where you can share things and not have to struggle by yourself.
I assume that there's a cost associated with this.
It is, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. So, again, please send me links to all this, so we can
yes.
folks can jump around and select what they want. And you also mentioned, I guess your editor works in Final Cut. Are you a Final Cut girl too, or do you
Mhm.
prefer one of the others?
Yeah, yeah. I was going to use whatever he's using, but I also already had Final Cut.
Mm.
Um, and right now, I'll give him the footage. He'll get it all synced up and give me a rough cut, and then put the project file without the footage, because I'll keep my own copy of the footage, back into iCloud Drive, and then I just relink all the footage. It's pretty quick. I've even been using Keyboard Maestro to automate that part of it, which is very exciting. And then I'm ready to go put it in whatever format I need.
Have you considered any of the? I mean, you mentioned the Adobe products, but there are several others that are out there that or are editing in the cloud, so that you don't have quite the same level, maybe, of back and forth. Or do those appeal to you at all, or is this a case where you found something that works for you and you're going to just use that?
At the moment, it's working. If we could do something that was more in sync, that'd be great, but it would probably come with additional costs. And at the moment, we have our copies of Final Cut. We both know how to use it, so there's not a learning curve. In fact, sometimes watching each other edit things, we'll learn something we didn't know, which is always fun. And so, and we've known each other for, I don't know, 18 years, 19 years, something like that. So we have a really good rapport, and we can get stuff figured out pretty quickly.
I love, this may not be interesting to some folks, but I love talking through workflows, because I learned things.
Yeah.
You and I were talking pre-show about various inspirations we've had from other people, and that have affected what we've done and what we plan to do or hope to do at some point. And so it's never wasted as far as I'm concerned. It's because I always feel like there's something there that, even if I don't realize it right now, I may think about it at dinner tonight. It's like, that's a really good idea, or I could do that, or I could take that and turn it sideways and do this. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the channel is frankly is just kind of amazing. There's so much good stuff there, and I would love to have people check all that out, check everything you're doing out, because I think the ADHD, excuse me, I think is so important, and I'm not sure that the state of our society right now and our world, that maybe we all don't have a little bit of it, or if we have that tendency, it's not coming to the fore.
Here's the thing. There are a few exceptions, but mostly stuff that's good for folks with ADHD is good for everyone. There are exceptions, but mostly that's true. It's just that it's not getting to a level where it's become debilitating for folks without ADHD. And so, there is that thing. I mean, I could go on a whole tangent about that's why some mental health professionals have issues with it. But the fact is, my definition is it's extra human. Those things that human beings do that are so creative and great, like ADDers do a lot of that. We're always having ideas. But also those things that are just so bonehead, like, I'm sorry, I've lost my keys how many times? We do more of that too. So all of those very specific human things, we just do more of it. And so it really is like extra human in the dumb stuff, but also in some exciting stuff.
Well, and you bring up a really important point, though. A lot of us, and maybe I'm not particularly proud of this because I know I've done it, but we will joke about, I've got ADHD. And we may have it to a degree, but you use the word debilitating, and that's something that I think we don't always appreciate, just how counterproductive, that having that syndrome might be.
And it's all about situation. I mean, you're going to hear a little biology lecture, but we evolved as a society. Our neurodiversity as a society, like the fact that your brain, Chuck, is a little bit different from mine, that makes us all stronger as a race of human beings. And the fact that we all have these different strengths, that we can come together to build things that we couldn't build with people who only had a brain like mine or like yours or like Sam's over there. It makes us so much stronger than the sum of our parts.
No, you're right. You're right. Sometimes we lose track of that, but it's true. I want to wrap up with arguably the most important thing, though, and that is, what is it with you and Star Wars?
It's just fun. It's just fun, okay. And I love themes. I love themes, and I was like, I like Star Wars. I can go with this, and we came up with a theme, and I've just been going with it.
Well, and I do bring it up because you'll see on the videos that there are certain things that come across as very Star Wars themed, and so if you're not prepared for it or understand that is you, it's like, I'm confused. What's this about here?
It's my brand, Chuck.
So?
It's just and I try to have it be that it's not the end of the world if you don't follow the example. Like, it's okay. It's just a ship. Don't worry about it. And so I throw them in just for fun because I did it a lot in my task management course where I'm showing examples of all the different apps, like setting up a project in them and what does that look like. And so they're all different things like, I got to get the Millennium Falcon in for servicing. And it's okay if you don't know what the Millennium Falcon is. You can still watch me make the demo.
Yeah, no, that's good.
It works.
I like it. The other thing that I have to ask you about, and I'm glancing over at it, looking right now, what is the photo that you have up as the top, where it looks like you engaging in some sort of martial art?
Oh, on the channel.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah. Well, we can talk about the one in the background, but yeah, I was referring to the one on the channel.
So a weird set of circumstances. I ended up with my nephew in downtown Portland, waiting for our iPhones to be serviced with Jedi costumes. So we dressed up in Jedi costumes and ran around downtown Portland taking fun pictures. And many of them were outside the Apple store because we were waiting for the phone to get finished being serviced. And so we took a lot of pictures there, and I was like, I like this one. It fits my theme, so I'll just go with it.
I love it.
We're playing Jedi. That's the answer.
Okay. Did you? I mean, how did the public react to you playing Jedi with your nephew in front of the Apple store?
So anywhere else, it would have been strange. In Portland, most people didn't bat an eye. Occasionally, one person did say, "What convention am I missing that I should have been at today instead?" But mostly it's just like, oh, there's a Jedi right there. We have a bagpiping unicycler. I mean, it's just a thing that it's a place where it's just sort of accepted that you do weird stuff like that.
It sounds like what San Francisco used to be, and maybe still is for that matter. But yeah. So I like it. I like it. Okay, but since you cocked the camera up, I have to ask you to explain what's on the wall behind you. That's important too.
This one, that is a pencil drawing of a lightsaber hilt floating that my husband drew because he does photorealistic drawings.
It is very, very good. It really is.
He's pretty good.
So, folks, if you can't tell from this conversation, there's a lot of neurodiversity going on right there inside that head. So, and if you don't take advantage of some of it, you're crazy, because the videos are out there for free. They're all interesting. And as we said earlier, if one doesn't apply to you, fine, skip to the next. But you really should check them out. Subscribe to Britt's YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/ADD Liberator. So you'll know when new videos come out. But check out everything else that we've talked about too. Again, I'll have links in the show notes to everything, because it's all very, very important. Brittany, I always love having you on MacVoices live on Tuesday nights, and I'm so delighted that that's become a thing for you whenever you can put it in your schedule. So thank you. Your thoughts and opinions, and I love the fact that you will come on and then you'll come at something from a completely different angle than the rest of us, and that is a wonderful thing. So please keep doing it.
Aw, thank you so much for having me, Chuck.
So run down one last time real quick. I mentioned the YouTube channel. Where else should folks try to connect with you or see everything that you do?
If you want to see the place that I almost never tweet, you go to ADD Liberator on Twitter. I'm not very good at it. That you've already said the YouTube several times. My website is conquer.consulting, if that's something you want to check out there. And we have the ADHD Guild for some of our ADHD group things, and that's ADHDguild.com.
Great. Thank you so much for the time. Really, really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. I don't know about you, but I'm off to watch more of Brittany's videos, because I feel like there's some that will definitely help me that I haven't gotten to yet. So until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.